We're going to turn our attention to some local matters, some Davidson County matters, but it's going to impact all of us in Metro Nashville and beyond. We'll discuss said same with our good friend Courtney Johnston, who joins us. She is a Metro counselor sitting amongst the crazies on the Nashville Metro Council. And she sits amongst the crazies here today in studio. We were just talking. Courtney and I were just talking about the affordable housing crisis in Davidson County, specifically in Brentwood. I would love to find a place in Brentwood, but I need to find like a lottery ticket before I find a place in Brentwood. One way or the other. Yes. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So what's going on at the Metro Council? Anything good?
Well, so.
I say anything good, and I've stumped her.
Well, we just did some improvements to our financial policy around reserves, so that's good, but decently boring. But that's good.
Does Nashville have reserves?
We do. We changed that a couple of years ago, where we require 3 months or 17% of our operating budget to be held in reserves. Before that, we only had to hold 5%, and we fell below that, which is why we had that huge 34% tax increase, was to put money back into our reserves.
That 34% tax increase. Remind me what type of tax increase that was again?
That was a property tax increase.
And when was that?
That was 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
Last time we reassessed property values.
Well, actually, no. It was the year before.
Okay.
And then the property tax. So we raised taxes in 2020 for FY21, but it was in 2021 that the reappraisal happened. Happens every 4 years.
Right. Okay. So that makes sense. Well, we just had a reappraisal.
We did. It was a doozy.
It was. Yeah. I mean, my goodness gracious. If everybody's moving out of Davidson County, if everybody's leaving the metro area, which, I mean, I don't think that's so, by the way, but Davidson County is, the growth of Davidson County is probably not keeping up with the rest of the metro. Is that fair?
That's fair, yeah.
Then I'm a little confused as to how property values are going up in the amount that they're going up, but I guess the appraisal is what the appraisal is.
Well, when you look at it, when you get your appraisal amount, it is going to be sticker shock from a percentage perspective. But if you were to list your house, if you look at that appraised value, and you think, if I was going to list my house right now, what would I list it for? It's probably close to what that is, because she does that. The property assessor does that based off of market values. So
the truth in taxation piece that was passed by the General Assembly in the 1970s, and we were talking to Tori Venable about this a little while ago. Mm-hmm. To me, it forces the politicians to be more honest with the people that they serve when they decide to go up on rates.
Yeah, so, they like to raise the tax rate around, like in the same year, typically, as a reappraisal. And I think that the reason they do that is because it all gets conflated. It
gets confusing to people.
Correct.
And intentionally so, in my opinion.
That's what I'm saying. I really do think that is. And we did it differently under John Cooper in 2020 because we had to. The state we didn't have any money in reserves. We were out of balance. So that was the timing on that one. But with this, I think it's really important to tell people the average is 45% of an increase across the county. So what happens when that happens is so if your property tax went up 45% or your valuation went up 45%, your tax liability is not going to go up by 45% because we're going to have what's called an equalization rate. Mm-hmm. So if the property values go up by 45%, the rate has to come down by 45%.
The idea being that we should not, politicians, and this is the way that I look at it, tell me if I'm wrong, that politicians should not allow the tax assessor to effectively raise their taxes. They should have to do that themselves. So the state forces an equalization when the assessment goes up. And if the politicians need more money after that, they have to go back to the people and say, hey, we're going to go back up on the rate.
Correct. Now, not everybody's taxes went up exactly appraisals, went up exactly 45%. So if your appraisal was higher than 45%, let's say it was 55%, you are going to see an increase even after that equalization rate of 10%.
Okay, so the equalization rate is only based on the average?
The average across the county, correct. Okay. So if
your
reappraisal came in at 35% of an increase, your rate, your liability will actually go down.
The concept is that the government
cannot receive a
more
windfall.
Money.
Correct. And Tori explained it exactly right. I was listening earlier. We cannot receive a windfall. It has to be equal.
So anyone suggesting that because of the reassessment and because of the equalization rate that Nashville is going to take in less money is not being true. Nashville is going to take in the same amount of money via property taxes this year.
The exact same.
Right. So,
but we're also coming into our budget season. And so in the mayor's budget, he has already told everyone this is the time to raise rates. I personally, and I've been public saying it, I think that the over-under on that rate is probably a 20% tax increase, which is insanity. But so that is what's really going to increase your rate. So there's some people that will be affected by their appraised rate if they weren't exactly at that 45%. What's really going to get everybody is the tax rate increase.
What is the expected timing on the time? Let's talk about the equalization first, and then we'll talk about the possibility that Freddie's going to propose an increase. So, what is the timing on that, to your understanding? I mean, doesn't that's going to take into the summer and even into the fall, right, before we see that equalization, or is that happening? Is that an immediate thing?
I expect to see that on the next meeting's agenda, because it really will have sort of no effect. I mean, because the tax bills won't go out.
Just some smart people are going to do the math, right?
Right, correct. Well, it's pretty easy. It's 45%. I mean,
across the board.
Yeah. Yeah. So the rate will come down by 45%.
And then it'll go back up.
When we pass a budget, correct.
Right. But those two things are separate from one another.
100% separate. Yes.
Do you believe that there will be some politicians in the Davidson County area that will try to conflate those two things? I mean, is that what yes, because it's very easy to confuse folks. Absolutely. They'll say, well, property values have gone up and that's why, and our rate is really low. Well, the rate is low because the values have gone up. So that's what they always say is, well, but our rate is super low. It's one of the lowest in the entire state. Well, you're right. But that's because of that. The values went up.
Exactly. So it's the liabilities when people say, but that's their excuse of saying, well, we need to raise the rates because our tax rate is so low. It's like, well, it's only part of the equation.
How it's amazing to me that, and maybe it shouldn't be, that some political figures, I mean, the mayor is one of them, who talks a good game about affordable housing in this community, but then has suggested on our radio show that this year is a good year to raise property taxes. And he didn't say as much, but he didn't shut the door to it. And there's every expectation by everyone that I speak with, yourself included, that those rates are going to go up. How does he suggest that won't impact affordable housing in Davidson County?
You can't make it make sense.
Right?
Right. You're right.
What they try to do is that, in my experience, Courtney, they try to pretend that rent payers don't get affected by property tax increases. Do you believe that rent payers will be impacted by property tax increases?
100%. Yeah, those property owners are going to increase the rents in order to cover those fixed expenses. 100%.
Do you believe? I have predicted, and I did this the other night. I think you might have been invited to this, but you had a little gathering at the Metro Council that you had to attend. I think this was on a Tuesday night.
The Davidson County.
So we were talking about property tax increases and how political figures push one over on the taxpaying citizens. And I don't know if Davidson County is too far gone to help them understand how all of this works, but I believe the push is going to be against Trump. I think that Freddie and his minions on the council are going to suggest, and I've already seen evidence of it.
He's already done it, yeah.
That he's saying, well, because Trump's cutting these federal dollars, we can't expect this money in our budgets. And if you want to keep police on the streets and if you want to keep fire service in your communities, we're going to have to go up on. We don't want to. But they were going to do this anyway. I don't care who was president of the United States.
He has been talking about the property tax increase since before Donald Trump even won the election in November, much less was put into office and sworn in and all that. So that's nonsense. But it's a great way to pass the buck. Nobody wants to take the blame. And so that's exactly right. And it's apparently really easy right now to blame everything on Trump. So
what's the messaging that the people need to send to the Metro Council then? Just no?
Yeah. Well, here's what I say is I think if people had any type of assurances that the government was being run efficiently, that we didn't have a ton of waste, and that, yes, maybe property taxes need to go up a little bit. We get that. But we feel like our government is being run really well. Nobody thinks that. If they do, they're mistaken because it's not. I deal with it all the time. Multiple, like basically every department. There's things that can be done that could make it more efficient, 100%. And so that's where I would say is why are we never talking about looking at efficiencies? And I don't want to talk about like, well, just cut this and cut that. You don't even have to necessarily do that. Just start with the easy low hanging fruit, like contracts that we're not managing very well, that are millions of dollars, right? Because that happens all the time. I'm dealing with it right now with 2 departments. So that's my problem with it is the government always has their hand out, but they're never looking in the mirror and saying, hey, what can I do to make sure that we are spending these dollars in a wise, responsible, efficient manner?
Well, because they're spending other people's money. And
it's super easy to do, apparently.
Sadly, you're going to see mismanagement and you're going to see a lack of fiscal responsibility when you're spending other people's money. Yeah. I mean, so, listeners are asking, well, who is who is the Doge person in Davidson County besides Courtney Johnston? I mean, I feel like you would be that person if you had the ability.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is one of the reasons I got that I ran and thankfully won and got on the audit committee. And I've initiated several audits and we're getting those back. And I think we're going to get some good things out of it. Hopefully the mayor will respond in a way that is appropriate to some of these things and make some of the necessary changes based off of that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying that everybody in the government is bad. We certainly have some amazing people that work for the government, but we also have some just willy-nilly attitudes with dollars that are not theirs, and it makes an impact on real people's lives. We've got people on fixed incomes, are elderly. We've got young folks that are moving here and that live here and trying to get on their feet. And so these property taxes and the sales tax and all that, it makes a difference. And so we should take it more seriously, I think.
Remind me what the transit tax was again.
It was 0.5%.
And that applies to everybody.
Correct.
Obviously. Correct. I mean, they like to sell it as a tourist tax, but it applies to everyone.
Correct.
Equally. And so on the heels of that, which the voters voted for, I mean, It is what it is. Yep. I mean, sadly, I think they were duped in a certain way, but the voters went out and they supported that idea. Now that they're not going to see some of that federal money that they were dependent on, I mean, some of that was grant dependent. Am I not right?
The sales pitch was, when we have a dedicated source of revenue, it will just unlock all these federal dollars.
Right.
And what I said was, not necessarily. Right. It's not just like, oh, the federal government's just going to unlock the door and all this cash is going to fly out at us. It's like, no, that's not how it works.
Well, and see, local liberals typically look at the federal government as a free money piggy bank. And that time is over, thankfully, because finally someone's up there going, we need to get our fiscal house in order. And instead of going, well, we need to reassess or maybe put this genie back into the bottle, they're going to want their money from somebody.
Yes.
Us.
And they're going to get it. Yeah.
The property tax increase.
The property tax increase, yeah. And so everyone understands. So the way it works is by June 30th, we have to pass a budget. We are going to get the mayor's budget on May 1st during State of Metro. And so from that, the Metro Council we can do one of 3 things. No, one of 2 things. Well, 3. We can just pass the budget. We can say, yep, because it's filed as an ordinance.
Right. Great job, Mayor. Thanks.
Nice job. Yep. Or we can put together our own substitute budget, or we can amend his budget, which basically ends up being a substitute. So the problem with that is that we have to have 40 people. We're a 40-person body. So if whatever we pass has to have a majority, and everybody's got their own stuff they want. we have to rob Peter to pay Paul unless we are willing to increase taxes to get what we want. But if we said as a council, we don't want this 20% tax increase.
And he's already included it in his budget.
And it's already in his budget. And the budget has to balance, which means the revenue equals the expenses. So then we have to look at those expenses and say, okay, if we don't want all this new revenue, we're going to have to cut that same number of expenses, or we have to find the money elsewhere, which there's no money tree. And
you don't have enough conservative-minded people on the council to do that, do you?
It's not even necessarily conservative. It's just nobody wants to make cuts. Cuts can be hard, but that's part of the job, is to make those hard decisions. No, I mean, in fact, so in 2020, Mayor Cooper proposed a 32% tax increase. The council passed a 34% tax increase.
They actually bumped it up. So is there anything the people of Davidson County can do to prevent the mayor's proposed property tax increase, in your opinion?
I mean, sadly, probably not.
I mean, that's sad, but
I'm just being honest, because if he feels like we need more revenue for whatever he's going to add, or whatever that is, he's going to do it.
And the way that it works, he includes it in his budget.
Yep.
And then the Metro Council signs off on it, or has to cut money out of the budget.
Right.
In order to cut the property tax increase.
Correct.
And you don't believe the Metro Council has the willingness to do that as a body?
No. And, we don't really affect the budget too much anyway. It's literally like 1%, maybe 2%, just because our process is we rob Peter to pay Paul. So, 5 years ago, we added 2%. I voted against that. But that's just what our process is. What I would say is, elections have consequences. And until we start really paying attention to the people that we're putting in office, especially on the local level, we've got people upset about a zone change. That is the one absolute power that council members have, and our planning department gets thrown under the bus all the time. Oh, they're so pro-development. Planning doesn't initiate anything. The council members do it.
You kind of went off. I say go off, and I don't know, maybe that's a mischaracterization. But the mayor, Freddie O'Connell, doesn't seem to know how to take a stand one way or the other on the issue of LPRs, or he seems confused by it. He seemed confused about where we are in the process. I'm not knocking the guy. He's going to be on May 1st. We'll ask him about it. But he seemed to, in recent comment, throw it back on the Metro Council as to why we don't have license plate readers. Now, I understand that there's a genuine debate about civil liberty with regard to license plate readers. And we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the fact that it is not sitting in the lap of the Metro Council. Correct. As to whether or not this happens. Talk to me about your frustration with the mayor's characterization.
Well, so oh my gosh. So my ordinance that crafted the policy around it and allowed LPRs in the right of way passed in 2022. We had the 6-month pilot. It was successful. We passed the resolution that allowed the full implementation. That was in fall of 2023, maybe summertime of 2023, right before the elections. The election. So since Freddie was sworn in, he has had that in his lap. The contracts were in procurement. We've had those contracts ready to go for well over a year. And so for a while he was saying, oh, it's stuck in procurement. No, it's not. No, it's not, because I called procurement. No, it's stuck on his desk. He has to sign off on it. That's something new that his administration has done, where they have to sign off on every single thing, administration legislation that comes through. I don't know that anybody, certainly John Cooper didn't do that. He signed off on a lot of things, but it's Freddie's position that he signs off on every single thing. So he is the holdup. He also didn't fund it in the FY24 budget. Sorry, FY25 budget. The budget season
that we're currently in.
That we're in, yeah. So if you don't fund it, it obviously shows that you don't have any intention of putting forth. Why would you put forth a contract that doesn't have money associated with it?
So to be crystal clear, the Metro Council has done everything that the Metro Council needs to do to implement license plate readers.
Correct.
In Davidson County.
Correct. Now, 2 meetings ago, Councilmember Tanya Hancock put forth a piece of legislation, a resolution asking the mayor to bring the contracts to us. I'm told that the administration was lobbying against that. Certainly all of the people that are all against LPRs, and oh God, they're watching us, came out against it. And it was so heavily fought against that she just withdrew it. The fact is, we don't have the votes in the council. We don't. And I thought we had votes for FUSUS, and now I don't think we have votes even for FUSUS, which shows a massive disconnect between the people representing and the people that we're supposed to represent.
Is crime currently a problem in Davidson County?
Yes, it's the number one complaint from everyone. Because
I hear about shootings.
Yes.
I hear about robberies. Mm-hmm. I hear about theft and
every single day.
Carjackings and all of these types of things, all of which could potentially be prevented by technology like FUSUS, technology like LPRs, that, in the case of FUSUS, sadly, the Metro Council does not see fit to vote on that. LPRs, the Metro Council's already. So you're saying it's already happened for the council, but if the council had to re-vote on LPRs, you don't think you would have the votes now?
So we have to approve the contract. So so they're allowed in the right of way. The policy has been approved. You just have
to find the right company and.
Right. And we have those companies ready to go. Those contracts are ready to go. We just have to approve them legislatively. That's what has not been brought to the council is the contracts. He continues to go back to the policy. Oh, well, we had all these meetings for public input. We spent 4 years doing public input. How many community meetings do we have
That's what this dude does.
It's just, for God's sake. It's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I did go off a little bit because he has held this up for almost 2 years now. He's been in office for almost 2 years. He has been the one to hold it up. And so to blame it on the Metro Council just really burned me up. No. The problem is that everything was on hold. This entire city was on hold, no matter what, until the transit referendum.
And he got his transit tax.
And he got it. And so now here we are.
So I'm fascinated by this. The mayor seems to be developing a bit of a pattern, whether it's FUSUS or LPRs or you and I were talking off air about the Nashville Speedway, the Fairgrounds Speedway, which I'll bring up in just a moment. It's the same pattern. Is hesitate, wait, blame other activities as to why you can't do something right now. Wait a situation out to the point that you then claim that you need public input on the situation that had public input a year and a half ago, but you waited for so long, right? They're doing that with the Fairgrounds Speedway now. I was a part of the meeting at Geodis Park a year or so ago, or a year and a half ago, when the overwhelming sentiment was take the Bristol money and revitalize the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. And now what I'm hearing, because they've slow walked this for so long, we need more public input. Well, you just had public input a year and a half ago. You're the reason that the public input isn't fresh because you slow walked it intentionally. It's this circular pattern that delays instead of just making a decision and announcing to the people that this is what we're going to do or this is what we're not going to do.
Well, that's what a leader would do. And so we have now someone that is just massively averse to any type of conflict. He doesn't want to make anybody mad, but in his quest to not make anybody mad, he's making everybody mad.
On the issue of the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, we haven't seen any movement on it.
Correct.
I mean, the Bristol folks have offered what I consider to be a sweetheart deal for the city.
Unbelievable. You'll never see it again. I mean, it is just an incredible investment into this city.
It is my understanding that it is solely because of the objection of the ownership group of Geodis Park as to why there's not been any movement on that. Do you get any indication that that is the case?
I know they're having conversations, obviously off the record, behind the scenes. And so I really don't know. But again, as the executive branch, it's your job, it's your duty to make a decision that's best for this city, and move forward. Make a decision and move forward.
There is a movement to try to get right now, for those that don't know, it is a part of the Metro Council charter that there be racing at the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway.
It is a charter protected use, yes. And
is there not a movement to try to get that on a ballot somewhere to remove that from the charter?
Yes, that's the only way that can happen is through referendum, which we had, I think it's in 2017. I'm sure my phone will go off if it's wrong, because I know there's folks that are listening. I think we had that referendum in 2017, and it came back overwhelmingly in support of the Speedway, the Fairgrounds Speedway. My fear is that if we went to referendum again, that the demographics have changed so greatly in Nashville that there are people here that don't necessarily value that history.
Right.
And so I don't know that would work out so well for us again. I may be wrong, but that would be my fear.
Right. I mean, you don't have to value motorsports. I don't think you have to value racing. I do, and I appreciate it, and I know a lot of folks think that that's my sole interest. I've been in enough communities, and I think the city of Nashville's seen it a lot too, where once you lose these one-off aspects of your city, you're never getting them back.
Right.
And no amount of condominiums and no amount of parking garages are going to change that. I mean, and if it were up, y'all tell me if I'm wrong. Courtney, you tell me if I'm wrong, but if it was up to the city of Nashville, the Ryman Auditorium wouldn't be there.
That's a fact. That is a fact.
I mean, they were ready to let it go.
Yeah.
And the Ryman Auditorium was saved by private interest and private groups. And, maybe that's what it's going to take here. Sadly, I think that there are private interest and private groups that are actively working behind the scenes to prevent the Fairgrounds Speedway from being
well,
run.
And we have that. Right. So Bristol is that private group that is offering to come
that's
in
exactly right.
and do. And yet we've got people that are trying to stop that too. So it's really, really frustrating. But that track, for people that don't know, I think you said it was 1906. Anyway, it was early 1900s.
Horse racing to begin with.
Horse racing. And forever it has been a very economical, family-friendly place to go and have some fun and not break the bank. And so I hope that we can keep that part of our history.
Well, I certainly do as well. Is there anything else? I mean, you say FUSUS is dead? And for those that don't know, FUSUS is existing security camera technology, private existing technology that the city wants to engage in private contracts with so that they can access that technology in an expedited amount of time.
It's an integration software.
Right. In order to catch bad guys.
Right. So the cameras are already there. They're already at the Kroger and at the MAPCO, and all these commercially owned, businesses have these cameras. The cameras are already there. FUSUS just allows integration into those systems so that the police can access them when there is a call for service, so that they can expedite their response and make it a more safe, efficient way to investigate and respond to active scenes.
And for some reason, the Metro Council says no to that too.
Thus far. Yeah. I mean, yes. So we haven't got the contract. We did pass a policy around it, just like we passed the policy around LPRs in 2022 of mine. But the actual contract, which is what we're waiting on. So we're waiting on the contract for FUSUS and the contracts multiple for LPRs. That's the only thing that we're waiting on. The mayor's office has not put them forth. Again, at this moment, I don't think we have the votes for either one of them.
Are you excited about Bridgestone Arena getting redone? That's nice, huh? That's fun.
Sure.
That'll be good.
It will, yes.
I mean, East Bank rolling right along.
That's true.
I heard somebody bought the steel thing or whatever.
Oh, the PSC metals?
Yeah.
I wonder who bought that.
I don't know, but that's what I heard.
I'm going to make a phone call when I leave here because I know somebody that was involved in that.
I heard that there was an environmental study going on.
Well, yeah, yikes.
and you know what? I don't want to deliver bad information. I want to take something back. what I may have heard was that there was a sale contingent on
I think that's probably more accurate. That's probably more accurate. Yeah, I mean, that's a 6-figure at least, probably environmental mitigation is what I heard several years ago. I haven't, but
there's a fear. I mean, and for those that don't know, the scrap metal yard, everybody's seen it off the interstate, off the loop.
Can't miss it.
And you can't miss it. And there was an unwillingness to sell for many, many years.
Yep.
And that they've now agreed to sell. But the concern is once you start digging, what are you going to find? Because that thing's been there for long enough that there were probably a lot of loose rules about what could and could not go into the ground back in the day. And if they start finding stuff, they got to dig it up.
And again, I say yikes.
Yeah. Well,
we shall see what's underneath there.
We all shall see. Thank you for everything.
Yeah,
Courtney.
absolutely. Glad to be here.